The Shroud of Turin is one of the most researched and studied relics in church history, and profoundly impacts many who encounter its mystery.
As a person of faith, looking at it through the eyes of faith, I don't think it can help but touch your heart.
Something that we can look on not only to bolster our faith in those moments of weakness, but also to deepen our faith and our appreciation, our intimacy with Christ.
Join Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry as they examine the science of the shroud through the lens of faith.
Really interesting scientific information that we didn't know about, like the pollen from all the different regions of the world. As the shroud traveled around, it picked that up. Some of the mites, things like that was really interesting to me. I mean, this made you really want to believe it a lot more.
It's impressive. Like, humanly, I don't think like that is another level of love. It's not I'm like, oh, I love you, I'll give you a chocolate. No. I'm giving you more than my life. I'm giving you my suffering.
Asking both experts and disciples, who do you say I am?
As far as who the man of the shroud is, I, as a person of faith and kind of reviewing the evidence there, it seems that a convincing argument can be made that it's Jesus of Nazareth.
Visit patchworkheart.org/shroud to learn more and get exclusive behind-the-scenes updates for your support.
The St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, in partnership with Patchwork Heart Ministry and Fiat Ministry Network, present a podcast for divorced and separated Catholics.
Hello, and welcome to a podcast from the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. This is Ann DeSantis, Executive Director, joined by our Board President, Mickey Kelly. Mickey, welcome back.
Well, it's great to be back again, Ann.
That's right. I agree with you, because this is a great series that we're doing. And actually, this is the first time that we've ever done a full podcast series just for adult children of divorce. And the name of the series is called 10 Tips for Healing for Adult Children of Divorce. And we're on podcast number 3. So the topic of this one is to seek to find support for your situation. And may I add that we're specifically talking about Catholic pastoral support. Now, finding support in other areas or other realms, of course, it may be a good thing. But since we are a Catholic nonprofit 501c3, we focus on that pastoral outreach that we offer for Catholics, or even someone who likes the Catholic Church and maybe you're in a mode of discovery about the Church. That's another place. So why don't we just start out with you and I, Mickey? I mean, we've talked about this before in other podcasts. We don't need to go into the full long story of it, but maybe we can both share just a tad bit about our own journey as adult children of divorce. So if you want to share a little bit about you.
Sure, Ann. So when I was 10 years old, I remember we were coming home from a family gathering, and we were told in the car to get home, heat up your dinner, and then sit at the table. And I just thought maybe there's going to be a new change or something. Maybe we were going to move somewhere, it's kind of anticipating that, or we were going to be surprised with a new vacation. Maybe we're going to go someplace different, what have you. Like, those are some of the things, thinking like, oh, is this it? Maybe we're going to go someplace else. That's something a lot of people would expect. But sadly, it was quite the opposite. And I recall my mom uttering the phrase that Dad is no longer going to be living with us anymore. And I still remember my dad throwing down the steps like 2, 3 trash bags, I'm guessing like clothes or what have you. And he gave me, my grandma, my paternal grandma's number, which they were actually not far at all. They were like a couple blocks away. And I remember my dad, like, he had the look of agony on his face. And I remember and of course, that a 10-year-old can't really comprehend what was going on. But of course, when you have three older siblings, they have a better grasp at what was happening than you do. And so they separated, and about 2 years later, they divorced when I was 12. And honestly, just like, it was just something that I kind of hope not. I kind of hope that many people don't go through, during their lifetime. When you get married, you make a promise that you lead each other, you build each other up, especially get to your ultimate goal in life, and that is heaven. But I felt like there was something missing, when it came to my parents' marriage, when I look back at it. And I'll discuss it another time, but sad looking back at the whole thing. But you know what? The only thing that mattered the most is just it strengthened me.
Yeah, I will say, in the time that I've known you and how we've discussed your journey, is that you've grown so much, and you have had wounds from the past. And I'm pretty sure that some of your family members have too. But it's also amazing to see how God has really led you through for healing, and I believe, and I think we all have kind of a different definition of healing. But one of those is that we do live in a sinful world. And because we have our Savior Jesus, because we have our Catholic faith, healing is available to you. And it doesn't mean that you erase what happened in the past, but despite sin, despite vice, despite difficult situations that have happened, you and your family can move on in faith, hope, and love, knowing that God is still with you, knowing that you can still continue to live a life of faith no matter what your situation. So I just want to thank you for your story. I've shared my story several times before, and my story basically is, first of all, I am in my late 50s, and my parents divorced when I was 7 years old. And that was back in the early 1970s. I mean, just to give you an idea of the year, some of you listening, maybe you weren't even born yet, but it was 1972. And that was way before the uptick that I will say in divorce, meaning it was kind of at the beginning when divorce was starting to, you were starting to see more divorces and see more annulments happening in the Catholic Church. So when my mother got divorced, it was at a time when it was still not a normal situation that was happening like as it is today, that divorce seems to be so prevalent, both inside and outside the Catholic Church. And so at that time, when my parents got divorced, there wasn't quite as much, we'll say, support for the families. There wasn't so much support inside the Catholic Church at that time. Of course, there was no internet, and that makes a huge difference, doesn't it? In fact, if there weren't for the internet, we wouldn't be here, obviously, right? But so there wasn't as much happening, that everything that you did back then was really at the parish level. So if your Catholic parish wasn't offering something for divorced or separated, then you were really not finding help, because from what my understanding is, I don't even think many of the dioceses during that time were really catching on to it or trying to offer some type of pastoral care for those families. So I think we're living in a time which is a blessing, that there is more to offer to individuals and families who have been wounded by divorce. And I'd like to start out, if I could, Mickey, and maybe we can even talk about this, is kind of like our ministry and what we offer, because maybe this is the first time that some of you who are on this podcast listening, the very first time that you've heard about what we do, what we offer. And I'll try to make it a condensed version, since I've told the story quite a bit. But back in 2015, the Holy Father came to the United States for the World Meeting of Families. And we were blessed living in the Philadelphia area that Pope Francis came and did a mass here. And there was a lot of different, meetings. People came from all over the country. And the Mercedarian friars, which are the religious that we represent, that started this foundation, they went to the World Meeting. And Pope Francis posed a question to everyone: what can you do to help families who are suffering, families who need to know that they are supported, especially by the Catholic Church? And that question really sunk in to some of our friars. And I can think of specifically the two that came together. I'll just mention their names because we're very grateful that they had this initial idea, was Father Matthew Phelan and Father Joseph Eddy, who was both, they were both stationed in Philadelphia at the time. And they came together and said, you know, we should try to do something as a foundation. And that's when they decided, they voted, the order voted on what will we do? And it was between two areas of ministry that all of the friars in the United States made a vote. So we were either going to be involved in helping families in crisis, or in specifically narrowing that down to human trafficking. And they made the vote, and it came back that there were more votes for families in crisis. And so over the last 7 years that we've been involved in this ministry, we've really zeroed in on who are those families, who are they? And our initial mission was always that divorced and separated, which we did for the first 2.5, 3 years of our ministry. We focused mostly just on that. That's really all we did. But a few years ago, we came together, it was during the pandemic, or actually maybe right around the time of the pandemic. We decided to kind of like go back to what we initially said, that we didn't want to focus on just one area of ministry. And that's when we came up with the idea, the foundation decided to go back to our roots, which was not just divorced and separated. So we actually make outreach to all kinds of crisis. So that crisis could be a separation or divorce. It could be the loss of a loved one. It could be emotional trauma, or any type of PTSD, not as licensed therapist, but someone who's there offering the pastoral care for someone who's gone through a trauma. It could be a job loss. It could be relationship issues that you have with your spouse or with children. So there's all kinds of areas that we've actually reached out. Even pro-life. I mean, we're a very pro-life ministry, and we've done work to help promote that culture of life from conception until natural death. So this part of our ministry, adult children of divorce, is something that we've really been doing from almost the very beginning, and we will continue to do that. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, how can you help me? Well, one way that we can help you is by doing what we're doing right now, and that's these monthly podcasts, and asking if you would like to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just go to Philly Nonnatus on YouTube, or just go to our website at nonnatus.org and check out our podcast and videos page. Another way that we offer support is through prayer. We have a whole religious order that's backed behind us, that every time we get a prayer intention, we send that to our friars, and they share it with their religious communities to pray for you and whatever's happening in your family. The other way is through programs and events. By the end of this podcast, Mickey and I will talk about some in-person events that we're doing, and also another online one. And then the real heart of what we offer is free pastoral care with a Mercedarian friar. All you need to do is reach out to us on our website and make that appointment. You can have as many appointments as you need to get that listening, care, but most of all, the guidance of the Catholic Church. And so that's what we do. That's how you can get support from us. So if you haven't done so, please make sure that you make that appointment for you, or pass it on to someone that you know. Now, I thought we could also spend a little bit of time, Mickey, talking about some other ministries that offer help, especially for adult children of divorce. And one is good friends of ours that we've done a podcast with before. They're called Life-Giving Wounds, and their mission is to bring Christ healing to young adults and adults whose parents have divorced or separated. Their website is lifegivingwounds.org, and you can learn all about what they do. They offer all kinds of retreats. And their mission, basically, they say on their website, is that we do a Catholic pre-led ministry by providing unique means for Christ to transform their life-draining wounds into life-giving resources of faith, hope, and love and joy for themselves, their relationships, and the church. We also seek to help them make and sustain a lifelong gift of love in either the vocation of marriage or consecrated life. It's a beautiful website. So be sure to check it out, Life Giving Wounds. You know, there's no real competition when it comes to Catholic ministry. The way that I look at it is, and I know the way we look at it is the more the merrier. So they offer support for adult children of divorce. So do we. So does another gentleman by the name of Joey Pontarelli with his Restored Ministry, and we'll talk about that too. But Mickey, I didn't know if you wanted to add a little bit about any of your experience with ministries that have helped you. I mean, I know we have, but do you have any other experience with other ministries that say their podcasts have helped you, or just being able to pass on resources to other friends?
To be truthful, and I feel like there has been some ministries, particularly in our area, that have, I think they're starting to, and I think we're kind of hoping well, I don't want to give out the battle plans we're trying to do here, but I feel like there are some ministries that we have come to know over the years, and you credit most of this because of my involvement with the foundation, of course. But I'm too humble to admit that, and of course you are as well. But seriously, I feel like groups like the Culture Project, Generation Life, I feel like they're trying to get on the bandwagon, so to speak. So it's not just like they're going to talk about like, oh yeah, pure love can wait and what have you. But I feel like too, there's like a deeper meaning to it. And without the pure love, that's where divorces happen. That's where the dad is missing in the household and what have you. And I feel like, we're helping those who have been wounded by the culture we have been living in, especially, you look at the last 5 decades, and your parents were right in the midst of all of this. And I'm also looking at the fact that, like, half of Catholic marriages are ending in divorce. Why? It's very simple. You have Catholic couples who think it's okay to move together prior to marriage, and but they don't realize they're in a state of mortal sin when it comes to cohabitation. And the Catholic Church has strongly opposed that, since the dawning of Catholicism. And, people say, well, you guys have too many rules. Well, guess what? Why do you think referees and umpires, they've avoided to strike balls and safe and outs and fair and foul ball calls, or holding or personal foul calls, in sports? It's the same deal. If you don't like the rules, guess what? You can just find someplace else. But guess what? No matter where you go, there's going to be rules you have to follow. And some of them are going to probably be very inconvenient to you. But you know what? In the end, it's going to be the right thing that you have to do. And that is to follow the rules. If you don't follow the rules, guess what? You're going to have consequences when you break them. Now, I feel like a lot of the ministries that we've came to know, Anne, is that I think they're starting to talk. There's a reason why, for example, Generation Life, why they say, you're worth waiting for. There's a deeper meaning to it, because they want to prepare for holy and fruitful marriages. This, likewise, the Culture Project, they want to reach out to those who have been afflicted by the culture. And there are wounds that are deeper than others. And we've encountered some of that ourselves, Anne, when we've been working together for the past 3 years. And I think the one thing that we need to do is we have to keep encouraging people like, hey, you've been wounded, you've been injured by the culture. It's time for you to seek that healing.
Amen. Thank you also, Mickey, that you brought up some of those ministries, especially ones that are close to our area that we've really gotten to know on a person-to-person basis. I think that's a wonderful thing, because I think also we need to promote good ministries, don't we? We need to really promote those ministries.
Absolutely.
That they might not be exactly like us. They might be somewhat different in some way, but there's no competition in Catholic ministry. There shouldn't be. It shouldn't be like, we're trying to get all the donations or clients. There's a ministry pretty much for everything that goes on that's a crisis. I really believe that. And so I think that we all have a place at the table. And I want to thank you for sharing about how Generation Life and the Culture Project has made a difference. You know, that's a perfect example. They're not specifically ministries that are, you know, for quote, for adult children of divorce, but they certainly get a fair amount of people that have gone through that. And they certainly do offer some kind of healing for those people. And so I just think it's wonderful that we mention that. And you know, I don't have their websites right in front of me, but I would just welcome all of you, please Google the Generation Life. Maybe Mickey can give us the websites by the end of the podcast. And the other one was the Culture Project. So make sure you check them out. Now there's one more I just want to mention, and you might not think to yourself, oh, okay, that's for adult children of divorce. But it's a very, very, very good friend of ours, which is the Pro-Life Union of Greater Philadelphia. And I think all of us in some way, shape, or form, we have all been affected in some way by a culture of, and I hate to say it, but a culture of death, right? And so it's wonderful that we learn about what good ministries are doing to promote that culture. Of course, they do a lot of events such as, you know, meeting at abortion facilities and praying for those who enter in these facilities and praying for them and their babies and praying for life, and all kinds of other things that they offer in order to help moms, help the families that once they decide to choose life, resources for them. So they don't just say, hey, the baby's born and now we don't really care what happens. We do care, and the Pro-Life Union does care. So I would just recommend to please do check out, go to prolifeunion.org. And if you live in the greater Philadelphia area, they're having a very special event in November as well, on November the 20th. So you can, I don't think it's too late when this podcast is published, that if you want to find out more about the Stand Up for Life event. So that's just a side note, but I wanted to make sure, because this podcast, we decided that the topic is to help you to seek support. And sometimes there's an intersection between certain ministries, like there could be a young woman who has been affected by abortion, but she's also the adult child of divorce, or maybe she herself is divorced. So there's always going to be that kind of crossing over between the help that you need. So please do check that out. Now, I wanted to also mention another amazing ministry that's for adult children of divorce. It is called Restored Ministry. And it's not plural at the end. It's Restored Ministry with a Y.com. The founder is Joey Pontarelli. And on his website, it says here, there's an invitation to join his community. And he says, that most young people feel alone in navigating the pain and challenges that come from their parents' divorce or separation. Our online community is designed to support you as you navigate the pain and challenges and show you that you're not alone. Often just talking about your family situation can be extremely healing. Not ready for that? Not a problem at all. Hearing the stories of others in our community in similar situations can help you feel like you're not alone. And then there's an actual link to join the community. So I would just say to definitely check out that website and connect with them on social media at restoredministry.com. So Mickey, I didn't know if you had anything to say in addition about either the Pro-Life Union or about maybe this ministry, because, you know, all of these ministries might be a little bit different, but don't they all help in some way to get that healing?
Oh, absolutely, Ann. You see, the thing is, you just pointed out a moment ago, is that there's no competition when it comes to Catholic ministries at all. We're not, you know, well, in Philadelphia, we have things called the ShopRite and the Academy, you know, as far as food market, as well as Giant and, you know, whatever other big chain supermarket chains we have here. But I think one of the things we have to understand is that there's no competition whatsoever when it comes to Catholic ministries, because each and every one of them has a different approach to help people live out their faith. In our case, you know, seek healing. And even one of the apparitions for Sister Blessed Lucia, who was the the surviving child of the farm children who witnessed the apparitions of Our Lady of Fatima in Portugal. She was told that the final battle between good and evil will pertain to marriage and the family. And honestly, we're seeing it unfold right now. When we look at, the recent stories of children being groomed by the LGBTQP, whatever it is now, with, those that are radically gay or lesbian, and they want to go after, vulnerable children. And we kind of seen that the past couple years with the virtual online learning. And then, of course, many parents are really stepping in. In fact, there are even those of the Islamic faith who are very up in arms against this, and they're pulling their kids out of these schools, which, thank God for that. Even other parents too. And we're seeing a rise in homeschooling or private education, doing everything, making sacrifices to make, making that educational foundation possible. But to really, and the thing is that we have to understand is that regardless of what the Catholic ministries are, they all have one purpose. Number one, the first and foremost is to help Catholics live out their faith. Number two, we have these ministries that are helping those to heal, like us, the Pro-Life Union you mentioned ago, Generation Life, the Culture Project. All of us, we all have one goal in common. That is, we want to help those to seek what is real, what is authentic, and in time, help each other to build a culture of life. That is the end game of every given, pro-life, pro-family, pro-love Catholic organizations.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really am liking our podcast for the reason that we're able to share ministries. And isn't that so important? Because, that's what it's all about. Like I can't say it enough. I mean, that it's not about competition, that one ministry is so-called better than another, because there's always going to be something different about that ministry. I mean, even if you look at, say, Restored Ministry that I just read, and the Life-Giving Wounds. I mean, even though they're both helping adult children of divorce, they're doing something different, just like we are. So I would subscribe to all of their websites and consider listening to their podcasts and doing, partaking in their events. Now, there's another one I want to mention, Mickey, which I don't know if we've discussed her before. She's actually a friend of the foundation as well. Her name is Lynn Kapuscinski, and the name of her ministry is called faithjourneys.org. And she's the president and founder, and she's a licensed clinical professional counselor, pastoral counsel, and also a Catholic child of divorce. And if you go to her website, now I will mention that she makes outreach to children of divorce, but the ones that are below 18. So they would have to be like accompanied by a parent or guardian. So this is good news for people who are listening and thinking, maybe I'm a parent and I have children, but they're not, quote, adult children of divorce. They're only like teenagers or however old they are. And on her website, it says that her name is Lynn Casella Kapuscinski. She's the president and founder of Faith Journeys Foundation, Inc. Faith Journeys is born from Lynn's own childhood experience. She herself is a child of divorce, and now she's dedicated to providing for other children what she wished existed for her. She said she's well aware of the unique nature of divorce grief experienced by children and the difficulties involved in growing from it to create a happy, holy, and lifelong marriage. So she's looking at it very holistically of how not only can that child be healed, but that they can, grow up healthy, and then maybe, when they're searching for their own vocations, and if it is marriage, to grow into also healthy relationships and healthy marriages. So I would definitely recommend for you to reach out to her. Again, Lynn Casella Kapuscinski at faithjourneys.org. That's plural at the end. So sounds like a good ministry, doesn't it, Mickey?
Well, I think it's good that we can start some of these people young, especially if they're below 18. I mean, I think if there's one thing I've noticed, and there's kind of like a gap between the you and I, is that I feel like a lot of my peers, generations Z, and I don't know what generation comes before that, but I feel like some of the some of the issues that are happening now, divorce or maybe mental illness or what have you, are really becoming a big thing today. And of course, we could point fingers at all the different culprits or factors that probably gave way to a rise in suicides, or this or that. But I think also the main the main thing we need to do is turn back to God. I feel like I know for a fact, when we turn back to God, as we're reminded in the book of in Chronicles, that if we call on his name, he will heal our land. And I think the first step in order to do that is that we have to turn back to God.
Amen. That's step number one. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. And before we end this podcast, there's one more resource that I want to mention to people. Now, of course, she's a little more geared for those who divorce themselves, and maybe somewhat of the adult children. She's done some work, but to mention Rose Sweet, which is our former vice president of our board. We're very grateful to her for her years of service for the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, and she's doing wonderful work. She is a Catholic author and speaker and has done so much in the realm of helping divorced and separated, but she also has some information there for adult children of divorce too. So I would just recommend to Google her name, Rose Sweet, go to her website. Her main website is rosesweet.com. In fact, she's got a beautiful new website that she's redone, and it looks fabulous. So you can learn about her and the good work that she's doing. But I know that she also has some good question and answers for those who are the adult children as well. If you go to her website or just go to Amazon and look up her books, sometimes it's good to read a book about the other perspective too. Like, say you are the adult children of divorce. It might not hurt for you to read a Catholic book about that's really geared for the parents, like your parents, so that you can kind of be able to sit in their seat and be able to see kind of what entails for their healing too, not just yours. So I think that's another reason to learn about Rose, about her writing, and maybe even connect with her, because she's a Catholic coach too. And she's done a lot of great work coaching people to find healing and also to make the very best of their lives and their vocational life as well. So before we end, Mickey, did you have any final words?
Well, and I didn't want to forget, we mentioned a couple of the ministries, and I think you were drawing a blank on the websites on a couple of them. You already talked about the Pro-Life Union of Greater Philadelphia. And of course, those of you who are listening, get your tickets, because the dinner last year sold out, like the first one coming out of the recent pandemic. And there's no question this one will be a sellout as well. So please consider attending. If it's also in your heart, we're going to have high school and college students, even grade school children attending. And some of them may see the cost and be like, I don't think I want to go. Bear in mind, it's a fundraiser for the organization, an annual fundraiser every year. And without your support, this would not happen. So if it's in your heart to support someone to attend a dinner, please, by all means. Cost for a student ticket, $65. That went up $15 from the previous year. So, if it's in your heart to support a student, grade school, high school, college, even law or medical school, that's fair game as well. Please donate to them. And if you could donate to, if you could, support 10, great. But just as St. Teresa of Calcutta reminds us, focus on the one. That's one thing I want to, clear the air on. Now, as far as the organizations that we mentioned, and of course, I've been a friend to both of those organizations over the years. Please consider visiting Generation Life on their website, generationlife.org. And they have a presence on social media, by the way. So don't be shy to share their content on Facebook and Instagram. In addition, the Culture Project is very out there as well. The Culture Project, you can visit them at thecultureproject.org, and that's all one word, by the way. If you are someone that runs a school, grade school or high school, and would like to bring either of these organizations, please do so. They do have presentations that are geared towards those from junior high up to about college and young adults. So do not be afraid to invite them, because let's face it, it's time that you hear what is good, true, and beautiful, no matter where you are in life, single, married, or discerning a religious life. These messages ring true, no matter where you are. And these messages need to be heard throughout the masses.
Thank you so much, Mickey. Amen. And we congratulate all these wonderful ministries. And join us next month for podcast number 4 for adult children of divorce. If you haven't done so, please do make your pastoral care appointment with us for a free session. We are also now offering spiritual direction. I'm very excited to mention that. God bless everyone, and we will see you here next month for the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. Mickey, thank you so much again.
And thank you for having me on this.
See you all next month. Take care.
God bless everyone.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. For more information about the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, visit nonnatus.org or email director.srnf@gmail.com.
The Shroud of Turin is one of the most researched and studied relics in church history, and profoundly impacts many who encounter its mystery.
As a person of faith, looking at it through the eyes of faith, I don't think it can help but touch your heart.
Something that we can look on not only to bolster our faith in those moments of weakness, but also to deepen our faith and our appreciation, our intimacy with Christ.
Join Fiat Ministry Network and Patchwork Heart Ministry as they examine the science of the shroud through the lens of faith.
Really interesting scientific information that we didn't know about, like the pollen from all the different regions of the world. As the shroud traveled around, it picked that up. Some of the mites, things like that was really interesting to me. I mean, this made you really want to believe it a lot more.
It's impressive. Like, humanly, I don't think that is another level of love. It's not I'm gonna see people like, oh, I love you, I'll give you a chocolate. No. I'm giving you more than my life. I'm giving you my suffering.
Asking both experts and disciples, who do you say I am?
As far as who the man of the shroud is, I, as a person of faith and kind of reviewing the evidence there, it seems that a convincing argument can be made that it's Jesus of Nazareth.
Visit patchworkheart.org/shroud to learn more and get exclusive behind-the-scenes updates for your support.